Hello Varlets! I've been messing around with the newly buffed Point Blank Barrage recently in an effort to see if the changes it received actually had a practical impact on the Ogryn's gameplay. In this video, we'll take a look at what the changes actually do to Point Blank Barrage, which weapons benefit from it the most, and my thoughts on what I think about the buff. So let's get it on. So, first things first, let's get everyone on the same page. This is what was buffed for Point Blank Barrage. It got 2 seconds added to its duration, bumping it up from 10 seconds to 12 seconds, and at the end of the ability, it refunds 50% of the ammo consumed back into your reserves. These two buffs work together to give the Ogryns using Point Blank Barrage better ammo economy and sustain, which Ogryns could really use a lot more of. They have many fun weapons to use, but they run out of ammo in prolonged fights, especially in the higher difficulties. Now, I also did a little bit of testing to establish how exactly these changes work. The first thing I wanted to know is that if I fired an odd number of bullets, like 3, does the ammo refund round up or round down? In this testing footage you're seeing on screen right now, I fire 3 rounds while Point Blank Barrage is active, so mathematically I should get back 1.5 rounds, which is neither here nor there. But at the end of the duration, I only get back 1 round, which means Point Blank Barrage rounds down the ammo consumption. I tested this again with 5 rounds and 7 rounds, and they refunded ammo that was rounded down, which was 2 and 3 respectively. This is relevant for weapons with low mag sizes like the Grenadier Gauntlet, Rumbler and Kickback, since the difference between getting back 2 rounds or 1 round is whether or not you fire an extra shot. Next, I was particularly interested in the wording of the change. It reads ammo consumed, which to me means there was going to be anti-synergy going on with Lucky Bullet. You see, whenever Lucky Bullet triggers, it makes the ammo cost of that shot equal to 0, since the ammo in your mag doesn't go down. So my thoughts were, if Lucky Bullet makes it so that I don't consume ammo, does that mean I get less refunds while Point Blank Barrage is active? To test that, I used the Back Off talent to guarantee a Lucky Bullet activation on my next shot. When I was ready, I activated Point Blank Barrage and fired exactly 2 shots, which should refund back 1 shot normally. At the end of the duration, I in fact got 1 shot refunded into my reserves. What this told me was that the description was not exactly right. It should read shots fired rather than ammo consumed, since I technically only consumed 1 ammo from the test. So the good news is that Point Blank Barrage is working properly when paired with Lucky Bullet. The ability works based on the number of shots you take during its activation rather than how much ammo you actually spent. And this distinction actually matters. That's because it means that if you can activate Lucky Bullet multiple times during Point Blank Barrage, you can get a positive ammo bonus. Because you are pulling bullets from nowhere, but it still gets counted as ammo consumed, you can get more ammo added back than you spent. In this example clip, I got lucky and had multiple activations of Lucky Bullet with my Kickback. I fired 12 rounds total and got 6 rounds back, which works as you expected. 6 rounds refunded from 12 shots is 50%. But 4 of those shots were Lucky Bullet activations, meaning I pulled 4 bullets from nowhere and got 2 extra rounds refunded for free. This meant that the total cost of firing 12 shots from my Kickback was only 2 ammo. Now that we've covered how Point Blank Barrage actually works, my next question was then figuring out which weapons from the Ogryn's arsenal would benefit the most from having an improved ammo economy. The technical answer would be all of them, which is true, but to be more specific, I wanted to know which weapons could take advantage of this type of sustain, allowing it to be much more aggressive without having to worry about ammo as much. And after playing with pretty much everything, my conclusions are the Kickback and the Rumbler. Because Point Blank Barrage encourages you to keep firing for as long as you can to try and proc Lucky Bullet and get back as much ammo as possible, certain blessings become a great deal better under these circumstances. For both the Kickback and Rumbler, Blaze Away becomes an incredibly powerful blessing to have while blasting away. While it was strong before, the fact you needed to fire 5 rounds before reaching full stacks made it relatively expensive to keep up. But since you can comfortably fire around 9 or 10 rounds during Point Blank Barrage, you get around 4 or 5 shots back, which offsets the cost of having to build up the buff. Small thing to note, if Lucky Bullet procs and you don't fire immediately, you'll lose the buff and have to start again. So my advice would be to just spam fire while Point Blank Barrage is active. You do have a little more grace time while it's braced, so you can tighten and aim a little before losing the buff. Personally, I really enjoy using the Kickback with Point Blank Barrage now, being able to blast down hordes and shooters without a worry in the world, especially if you have a veteran with the survivalist aura. It's just really liberating. Here's the build I've been toying around with. For the weapons, I'm running a mix of Flak and Maniac damage. This gives you the broadest damage application against most of the major elites and specials. For blessings, I've taken run and gun mainly for the reduction in spread. I know the kickback's minimum pellet count is something that you have to consider, and therefore that makes run and gun not as useful for the extreme ranges, but I really like having a tighter spread when I'm still fighting within my kickback's effective range. It makes shots feel a lot more meatier, which I like. I'm also running Blaze Away since now the upkeep for this buff is a lot more manageable thanks to the changes in Point Blank Barrage. As for my talents, here's the whole 3. This isn't a themed build, so there's nothing spectacular about it like my other builds. Notable things I've taken are Keep Shooting and Reloaded and Ready. Since the kickback reloads after every shot, you'll benefit from this the entire time you're using it. Pacemaker stacks with Keep Shooting to give you a big reload speed buff, something that benefits the kickback a lot since fire rate doesn't do anything as it's a single shot weapon. Frag Bomb for emergency problem solving now that it deletes every human-sized enemy within its radius regardless of health. I'm also using Light 'em Up for the extra burn damage during Point Blank Barrage since it allows me to deal damage to enemies way outside my effective combat range. It's also really good against bulwarks since the burn goes through their shields too. The Concentrate talent is something I toyed around with and figured it was nice to have since the stamina cost on the kickback is non-existent, but the spread reduction is noticeable. Because you are reloading after every shot, your stamina starts to regenerate while you are reloading the weapon. But if you don't want it, you can easily move this point around. Lastly, what do I think of these changes made to Point Blank Barrage? I think these are really good changes that certainly help the gun-centric playstyle of the Ogryn. It does attempt to tackle one of the key problems, which is ammo economy, and it does so in an interesting way. However, I feel that there are more improvements that need to be implemented if we want to really see gun-centric Ogryns more viable in the higher levels of play. The key problem with going gun-centric is the presence of carapace armor. This makes all but 2 or maybe 3 of the Ogryn's guns useless against it. The Grenadier Gauntlet, the Heavy Stubber, specifically the biggest one, and the Rumbler to a lesser extent. My proposal isn't really to change up Point Blank Barrage anymore, but to look at a couple of its supporting nodes instead. Bullet Bravado on its own provides some additional defenses through toughness regeneration from either firing high fire rate weapons like the Twin Stubbers, or from reloading constantly like the Kickback. I would like to include an improved ammo efficiency trait into the mix, maybe something to the tune of 30%. This would mean, for every 4 shots fired, you roughly use only 3 units of ammo. This would affect high fire rate weapons like Ripper Guns and the Twinkling Stubbers the most, while giving marginal benefits to single shot weapons like the Kickback and the Rumbler since they can at most fire maybe 9 or 10 rounds during Point Blank Barrage's duration. But for something like the Ackley's Twinkling Stubber, that 30% ammo efficiency means being able to use more of Point Blank Barrage without having to reload in between. Of course, other weapons with different ammo mag sizes will benefit differently, but the idea is to allow players to keep shooting for longer and make the most of the 12 seconds of mega firepower that you've got. Now, for Hail of Fire, I propose an addition to the talent to better suit its name. Instead of just gaining 15% rending and range damage for the duration of Point Blank Barrage, I think it would be interesting if we got a buff that's scaled with continuous fire, similar to how Overwhelming Fire would work. So maybe it could work like this: gain plus 15% rending and plus 15% range damage when activating Point Blank Barrage. While Point Blank Barrage is active, gain plus 3% rending and plus 3% range damage for every 4 single target hits, lasts 3 seconds and stacks 5 times. This rework synergizes with the ammo efficiency implementation, as well as Lucky Bullet since it's all dependent on how many shots you can land on your target. This node is designed for anti-armor, so you should be able to take down a few armored units during your Point Blank Barrage. But in the end, these are just some paper thoughts. I'd have to really sit down and take a look at the Ogryn tree as a whole if I wanted to propose a proper buff of this sort. Anyway, I grade the current changes to Point Blank Barrage with a solid A. As always, I'm looking forward to seeing what they've cooked up next. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Varlets.